Welcome into this episode of Razor Recap, where we're going to talk everything about the big upset Arkansas got last night over the number 4 ranked Tennessee Volunteers. But before we get started, you got to remember Razor Recap is brought to you by Scarlet Letter, Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer, made right here in Northwest Arkansas in our very own backyard, as well as Jared's Kickin' Sauce. The sauce is great on everything. So go check those guys out today. Fantastic stuff. And man, what a game last night. Arkansas, coming in this game was a 13.5-point underdog. And, if you caught Seth and I's kind of preview with Skylar from Vol Fanatics, he kind of laid it out for us what Arkansas had to do to win. And that's what they did. Arkansas took care of the ball, forced Nico to play in the fourth quarter and have to make big plays. He is, this is his first year starting redshirt freshman, a guy that, not a ton of experience in big games like this. And so, we'll just start there, throw it out. Your guys' initial takes on the big win last night before we start diving into specifics.
Well, I'll take this first one, but we finally played a game with no turnovers, and look at how competitive you can be with the big dogs. I think that's one of the biggest keys of this game is we played cleaner than we have all year. We had 6 penalties. A couple of them were not great ones, with 2 of them being late hits. One was like a roughing the passer, and one was a late hit out of bounds. They were kind of dinky, but still can't do those things. That extended some Tennessee drives. But other than that, we played fairly well. We had a couple of false start penalties that need to get corrected, but it didn't just completely kill the momentum on those drives. I think one of them we might have had to punt on, but overall, you could tell it wasn't just critical. So outside of a couple of the penalties, we played a very clean game. Didn't have any turnovers. Taylor took care of the ball. The running backs took care of the ball. And then defensively, we had enough time of possession in the first half. It was very, very one-sided on time of possession in the first half. It made up for the fact that we're not as deep on defense in the second half, where our guys were tired at the end, but they still had enough left in the tank to play that fourth quarter, which was huge, and put up a 0 in the fourth quarter to secure the win. So defense, in my mind, gets the game ball here, but it's not too far behind with your offensive line and Taylor Green not turning the ball over and not putting him in position to turn the ball over as much, being able to play that clean of a game. That was huge, and it just it just gives you a little bit of that highlight of what this team can be when they really do perform to their highest level on all sides of the ball. So we still have some things to fix, but great game. Great game. Never expected it.
Yeah, and it was a team defensive win. There wasn't just one guy out there just destroying people like, the Drew Sanders days. Everybody was getting in. Everybody was out there rushing towards the ball. They played selflessly. Sorry. And man, we talked about it a little bit before, but Danico Slaughter had a game, 8 tackles, 4 solo, and a breakup. He also had that major hit on Yamaleava. I can do it whenever I'm not in front of a camera, but when I'm in front of a camera, it just doesn't come out.
I am Aliva or something. I am Aliva.
Yeah. Yamaleava. Gosh. Yamaleava. There you go. That's what it is. But man, he smoked him. But yeah, that's an accomplishment, man. Keeping Tennessee scoreless for 3 of 4 quarters. That's incredible. And like you said, those bad penalties that helped them with one drive. So Tennessee really had just one drive. And if we think about back to last week against Texas A&M, that's really all they had was 1 or 2 drives. Now, on the offensive side, you got to shore up. When you have opportunities, you gotta finish, right? They're very good between the 20s, but once you get into the red zone, it's just like they just can't finish that. And because they should have been up 20-0 at halftime.
At least 17.
Yeah, at least 17. So it's a little bit of back and forth, but man, that defense is so good. Like, look, they gave up 31 to Oklahoma State, but there were stupid turnovers deep in Arkansas territory. You can't really obviously the defense has to stop them there, but you can't put all of that fault on them. And 2, we went to overtime, right? So there obviously more points are going to happen. And then probably their worst game of the season came the week after against UAB, where they gave it 27 points. Still, I mean, you hold an SEC team to 27 points, you should be in the game still. And then they held A&M to 21, Tennessee to 19, and then they goose egg UAPB and 14 for Auburn. This defense, I'm telling y'all, man, they're good. They just have played some pretty good offenses.
I was about to say, Travis Williams is setting himself up to get a nice pay raise this season. I tell you, Hunter Yurchek needs to do whatever he can, give that man whatever he needs to keep him on campus because, I think Travis Williams is the real deal. He's done phenomenal recruiting so far and has really turned this Arkansas defense around to, a level we really haven't seen in the past few years where, you can actually count on the defense to get stops and win the game for you in the past wherever, we've had shootouts. But like Seth said, and it's a good point, this great defensive performance along with clean game offensively is really what set Arkansas up. Like, you guys mentioned we should have been up more than just a 3-0 game at halftime. Got to work on the red zone offense. But other than that, look at what happens like when Taylor Green performs better. It's almost which side of the coin are you getting so far up to this season? You have a game like this week where he completes 70% of his passes, takes care of the ball, and Arkansas offense moves pretty well compared to, last week, Auburn, where he's turning over the ball and it's a little bit of a struggle. So I think that's going to be going forward. Can Taylor perform more on a consistent basis? And then, our running backs looked great. This running game this year has continued to look, fantastic. Ironically enough, this year, the run blocking is better than the pass blocking. Whereas last year both struggled, but to see us have a success in one of those and improvement in the other, hopefully we got a bye week this week to kind of get some guys that are banged up, rested up before LSU comes to town next week.
Yeah, I think that's going to be critical.
Right.
Yeah, Taylor's big one. I think Landon tweaked his hip, so getting him fully healthy, hopefully. Taylor, there's a chance that he misses the LSU game. So I'm hoping that, Malachi gets some really good reps over the next week and a half or so, hopefully a day or two off, but then really get some good reps with the first string, if you will, and get him a little bit more confident. That is one thing I wanted to talk about, is he came in and did well enough. It was not pretty. I'll say that. He had the nice touchdown run and completed a couple short passes, but he was definitely deer in the headlights. If my first read isn't open, I'm taking off and running because I'm freaking out back here. He did not go through a progression one time. I mean, it was just it didn't look like very good quarterback play compared to what we saw, obviously, when he was playing against UAPB in kind of some garbage time there. He was slicing and dicing. Granted, who wouldn't be at that point? So you're going up in a really high leverage situation against a Tennessee team where you're needing to come back and get the win here. We were down at the time. That's putting a lot on his shoulders, and he hadn't seen a lot of game action like that, especially against a defense that's good. That's that good. So kudos to him for holding it together well enough, especially with some of the tough snaps. There was a couple snaps that were coming hot to the right or something like that. We've talked about it earlier in the season. Those have still got to get corrected. I think there was less snap issues this game, but it still wasn't a perfect game snapping the ball. So I thought Malachi did as good as possible with the cards that were dealt and made enough clutch plays here and there. And the defense made enough clutch plays throughout the entire fourth quarter and was fresh enough that it made up for the fact that we lost Taylor Green, if you will, at the end of the game. But yeah, getting guys healthy during the bye week, going back to that's going to be critical. I don't think it could have come at a better time. And I definitely don't think it could come at a better time as far as having a huge win like this, maybe to carry a little bit of momentum for the rest of the season. You get this week off. Everybody's, thinking about how nice that win tasted. You can actually enjoy it a little bit longer than maybe if you had a game the following week where, okay, we won. It's great. We got to flush it and then get ready for LSU the next week. Now you get 2 weeks, so you can maybe enjoy this win a little bit longer than normal because this was a historic win for us. So such a great night.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to give props to the offensive line and Braylon Russell on that last drive too, because I mean, you got a backup quarterback in. So what's what's Tennessee thinking? They're like, well, he
know
ain't
you're
gonna
running.
pass it.
They know you're running.
You're either gonna have a quarterback run or you're gonna have Braylon Russell run. And what did they do? They push some dudes, right? I mean, they were getting 2 or 3 yards of push up front, and then Braylon Russell, true freshman, 250 pounds, running like, I mean, he surprised me a little bit on that first run for like 23 yards. That surprised me how fast he got. And then he goes over on the second run, goes to the left and just smokes a dude, right? And he's dragging people, and I'm just like, that isn't a true freshman. That is like,
he's ahead of the
if
curve.
Marshawn Lynch gained like 40 pounds and grew 3 or 4 inches. That's what it is. Like, dadgum, he just ran over some people. That's insane. And I mean, that makes me happy for like next year, when he has another year under his belt, maybe a little bit more in the weight room, get a little bit leaner. That's exciting.
Yeah, I thought he really stepped up well considering Jaquindon was banged up in this game too. So that's another person that needs to get healthy was Jaquindon Jackson. He's not 100%. Heck, he probably hadn't been 100% since the Oklahoma State game. So this comes at a good time too. But to Caleb's point earlier in the show, having our running back room as deep as they are with as much talent that deep, I think is tremendous. We didn't even have Rodney Hill. He's out with injury as well, so get him healthy back too. But having Braylon Russell be a true freshman, but have the ability to contribute the way he has so far and that level of talent that early on and the size. I mean, you can't beat around the bush there. I mean, he's talented and sees holes well, and he runs well, catches the ball well actually too. But the size is one thing you can't coach and can't learn. That's just God-given natural ability and genetics, so he's ahead of the curve. We've said it ever since the beginning of the season before he even played that he's ahead of the curve for where freshmen should be. And him getting this level of in-game experience against a number 4 team, against one of the best defenses out there, he's only going to be able to build off that. He's getting confidence like crazy, from these types of possessions and these types of runs. So I love that for him. And then DeBinion, he didn't play a ton, but he was an extra body in there to take a couple of snaps and give a few guys some breathers here and there. I only had 2 carries, got him 10 yards out of those 2 carries though. And he didn't look terrible considering he hadn't played. So ease him back into things and get him some confidence back. And you're adding pieces left and right that you've been trying to fight to get back. So that's good. I think, like we said, this bye week could not have come at a better time, though, as far as getting as many people back healthy as you can. And fingers crossed for Talon, because that's going to be the biggest question mark, I think, out of this bye week.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. You hit on it. I was going to hit on it too. Austin, your guy, DeBinion, working his way back. You give him this bye week is, he works back into, I guess, quote unquote, that game shape as since he hadn't played this season. But that just makes this Arkansas backfield even more dangerous now that you can add him back in there. Rodney Hill gets healthy. You don't know what you're going to have coming at you. But to your point, Seth, the question mark going into LSU in 2 weeks is Talon Green. I don't know how much truth there is to this. They're saying out there that it looks like it could be an MCL sprain for him after that game. You saw him come off after that big hit where you had that deep completion to Armstrong down inside the red zone. That following drive, you saw him try to come back in and try to play. He got flushed out of the pocket, got tackled, and you could just tell, he wasn't going to be able to finish that game coming limping off the field. But, hopefully he is able to – it's not a lengthy injury that's going to cause him to miss a lot of time. From what I've seen, they said if it's a grade 1 MCL, he should be able to make it back by LSU. But it's one of those things, let's not rush it because – you see what he can do when he's healthy and playing well. If it's a grade 2 sprain, if that's what it is, then it could be a couple weeks. He'll probably miss LSU. But if I'm this coaching staff, I'm getting Malachi in running with the ones a lot, giving Talon some time off. He knows this playbook. Give him some time to rest that knee over. At least this for sure bye week. Let whatever much practice they're going to do. Let Malachi kind of run the offense and get more comfortable with those guys. Those snaps we talked about earlier, I think a little bit of that could have to do with, Malachi's going to come in. He's going to have a different cadence. He's significantly shorter than Talon. So it's going to take a few plays to adjust that the snapping and timing to a different guy compared to what you're used to and what you've played with the entire season.
Repetitions will be critical for that, So, like we said, getting him some time with the ones all week is going to be, I think, really important, especially if Talon's not able to go. But I'll say this: when that hit happened, and there was a roughing the passer called on because it was a late hit, maybe not necessarily dirty. He kind of got thrown into. I don't know. It was a little weird. But I thought it was a season ender. I'm not going to lie. They showed a camera angle where his leg looked bent the wrong way. And I was like, golly, he broke his leg. But I think it was just the way he was laying on the ground. It was just kind of weird. But when it happened, I was scared he was done for the year. And I was like, man, that is really going to throw a wrench in our gears. Because as many struggles as Talon has had off and on in some games, completion percentage wise, and maybe some decisions and things, he has been a spark plug for us on several drives, several plays where he's extended plays, either completing a pass or scrambling for a first down or scrambling for a touchdown. There's been a handful of those too on plays that were busted where he just made something happen with his legs that not really anybody else on our roster has that ability like he does. Malachi's good. Malachi's got good wheels, but Talon is like deceptively fast, and he's really, really got a good understanding of when he can take off and get first down yardage and when he can't and when he needs to throw the ball and things like that. His timing, understanding of the speed of these linebackers a lot of times that are going to be, kind of tracking along with him if he's breaking outside the pocket. He gets it. Like you can tell that he understands the spacing that is necessary to take off and gain yards or not. So getting him back is going to be critical. And I'm so thankful that wasn't a season ender type injury because it was very close to being something of that nature. And I'm glad it was not. Fingers crossed that he gets healthy sooner than later, though. We're going to need him.
Yeah, I think the tough part about this is that he played probably his best game, apart from the UAB
and couldn't
game,
finish it,
and couldn't finish. And then, but there's also that factor of one, the confidence. Like you got to think. Everyone talks about how his mentality is probably the best thing he brings to the team, right? And I'm hoping that's the case too, because just think about, man, you've had all this adversity before. And then you come into this game, you do enough to put your team in a position to beat the number 4 team in the country, and then you get hurt. And then now you don't actually know if you're going to be able to play for a few weeks. And now you're thinking, oh, man, I'm going to get behind. And I'm hoping that he has a strong enough mindset to push him past that. And he can come back LSU or Mississippi State week or even Ole Miss if that's what it takes, and come back and still perform it the way he is. Because I think there's a lot of guys out there who, if put in the same situations that he has this year, that they just wouldn't be able to come back and play the way they did. So I'm hoping that's the case, right? And but still, that was just some of those decisions at the beginning of the game were questionable, right? Like the missed pass for Tesla, that would have been easy touchdown. But those plays at the end of the game, like that one dime to Andrew Armstrong going towards the right end zone, that's insane. Like he put it in a place that only Armstrong could have caught that ball.
That was,
and I don't think people yeah. And then he hit Broden going the opposite way to the north end zone. Hit him on the left, which Broden caught a ball and took a hit. Heck yes, that's awesome. And then threw another dime to Armstrong on the other sideline. That's the play he got hurt on. I'm like, man, he was on a roll. He was looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Right, he had the confidence back. And also, I don't know if you knew this, but it felt like he was getting the ball out really quick yesterday. Really quick. So I don't know if that's saying more because I still don't think Tennessee played an offense worth anything so far. So I don't know. Them being the best defense in the country is probably inflated. But I don't know how much of that is that, or how much of it is the confidence and maybe the more understanding of the playbook. So I'm hoping it's the latter, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that was big, for Taylor. Like we've talked about his struggles with his accuracy, but in a game like yesterday where he was on and he was hitting on all cylinders, he can thread that needle, like you said, Austin, to where it's either his guys catching it or it's going to be an incomplete pass. He's not putting it up to where it could be a 50-50 ball or anything like that. Like you said, hated to see that misread on that, play with Tesla in the first half. But other than that, like you said, he kind of, moved past that as the game went on, kept making good decisions. And I think the thing that stands out to me is if you look down the stretch, especially when he was hurt, him being like everybody's talked about him being a leader on this team, it showed. Even Malachi talked about it in the post-game press conference, how every time he came off the field, Taylor was helping coach him up, helping him walk him through, what was going on. And I even noticed right there on that Tennessee's last drive of the game, we had a timeout or something. The team's out there huddled up. You see Taylor kind of limping over there to the huddle to, be with his guys and, support them, even though he wasn't necessarily on the field and wasn't able to complete this game. And, he even said that in the interview on the field, a little clip where he was like, I'm just glad we were able to, as a team, get this win. And I think this win was big for Sam Pittman as well. Everybody was questioning, those question marks going into the season, especially after those tough losses against Oklahoma State and Texas A&M in games where, like we've already established, you take away some turnovers. Arkansas is sitting at 6-0 after just upsetting the number 4 team. So, and, there's several clips going around of, players being excited and coming in the tunnel, giving Pittman hugs and, just being celebrated. And I think it's like Pittman's been saying all year. We saw how good this team can be. Like he's been preaching, saying, I know we have a good football team. And when they can put things all together like they did last night, play a clean game offensively, no turnovers, defense come out and play spectacular, even though they didn't necessarily get any turnovers, but they did the intangibles, getting pressure on the quarterback. They're able to adapt to, especially in 1 week's time, switching over to playing a different, style of defense, kind of taking notes from Oklahoma running a 3-2-6 defense where we saw that's what caused Tennessee some issues in that game. Kudos to Travis Williams and Sam Pittman on this big win this weekend.
Yeah, one thing I want to hit on too real quick around the defense is they were able to get off the field very well. Third downs wasn't just the best. Tennessee was 7 of 16, so about 50%, which – from your defense perspective, you want it to be a little bit lower than that, but that's okay. But they were 0 for 2 on fourth down. So we got 2 critical fourth down stops and then forced several punts and kind of had some good bend but don't break moments as well. You take away the third quarter, and we beat the brakes off of Tennessee. They had a busted play by Sampson in that third quarter to get them a touchdown where he ran 65 yards or something like that and then punched it in. And then there was one drive after that where they had a decent drive. And outside of that, it was a couple mistakes on us, giving them some extended drives with the penalties or the roughing the passer and the late hit. And outside of that, they didn't do anything. Frankly, they'd have a couple good plays and then we would just completely shut them down. Our run defense was very, very good outside of the one broken play. Very, very good. And you shut down in my opinion, I know they still had decent yards. I think Sampson still had 100-something yards, but half of it was on one play, mind you. They shut down a very, very efficient run game for the most part. And then if you look at the offensive side of things, we already kind of hit on it. We should have been up 17 to 20 points at halftime, pitching a shutout, 20-0, 17-0. You had there was the miss on Tesla, and then there was also it was one of the first. I think it was when we ended up kicking the field goal, and they missed Jordan Anthony on the little wheel route looking thing. Wide open, would have been a stride in touchdown, and Taylor hit him in the feet. Basically, he didn't even have a chance to make the play and catch the ball, and then waltz into the end zone. And that was on third down. Would have been a touchdown. We ended up kicking a field goal afterwards, and so. That's a play right there. We still got some points, but it should have been a touchdown, and you missed an easy one, and it was a bad throw by Taylor. And so got to clean that up. But outside of that throw, overall, I thought he played a great game. Had a 70% completion percentage, which is night and day different than how the last couple of weeks have been. So, to you guys' point already, his confidence level, I think, in this game was much higher. I think the timing they worked on all week, it showed. And I think a lot of it is just the fact that, look, this guy's good. There's just going to be some growing pains at first where everybody's getting on the same page as each other. He is looking better and better chemistry-wise with each of these receivers. Obviously, Armstrong's been good since day one with him. They hit it off from the get-go. But then the chemistry between him and everybody else, you've kind of seen spurts grow week in and week out where Satinya's kind of taking the next step. He's probably the number 2 guy. Broden could probably argue for that if he would catch the ball a little bit better as the number 2 guy. But those guys right there are getting better chemistry. And then really these last couple of weeks, you've seen Tesla come on. He's looking his way a little bit more. Tesla's getting open a little bit more. The timing's getting a little bit better. Still some misses and stuff that we got to clean up. And Haas as well. He's looking his way a little bit more when the timing's there. Haas is banged up, though. He's another person that's got to get healthy. But I think, and we talked about it before the season started, that the team on day one hopefully looks completely different than the team by week 10. Just because you're expecting these guys to develop and grow with each other, with it being so many new faces that hopefully by, week 9 or 10, you're really clicking on all cylinders. If Talon can get healthy quickly and plays an LSU game, I think that's the trajectory that this year's been on. We've played pretty well all year, but I think we're playing better and better as each week goes on, and we're cleaning up mistakes a little bit more, and we're being a little bit more efficient, things like that, even especially in the run game. Pass protection was way better in this game, so they corrected some things. Still some misplays, some misassignments, but it wasn't like every single pass down was a misassignment type issue like it was against A&M. So they corrected some things there, and it really came through and helped us out. So just keep this trajectory, keep this momentum, and I think you could do a lot with it. Another point you talked about, though, Caleb, and we had hit on it in the preview show with Tennessee, the Vol. I can't remember his name now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Skyler, yeah. He was asking about, Sam Pittman, how long we think he's got left. I had said I think he bought himself a year or two at least just by hiring Petrino, whether that was Yurachek or Pittman doing it or whatever, just due to the fact that we want to see what's going to happen if Petrino's got a couple of years, and you probably don't want to rock the boat and be shaking up your head coaches while Petrino's there and all that kind of stuff. So he probably bought himself a couple of years just due to that. This win alone probably bought him another couple of years too, though, frankly, especially if you can win the ones you're supposed to after this and make it to a bowl game, no problem. Maybe steal a win against Missouri or somebody like that, who is obviously beatable, getting drummed by A&M this past weekend. So the schedule's looking a little bit more and more optimistic the more you look at it, outside of maybe the Texas game. If we can play clean ball like we just showed we finally can, I've been waiting for it all year. Can we actually play clean? Because if we can, we'll be able to compete with everybody. And so, example A.
Yeah. Man, I kind of talked about it before the pod started. There's not another game on this, the schedule that I think is more than, a 70-30 game, and that 70-30 game would probably be, other than Texas, that 70-30 game would probably be Ole Miss. And so I'm not super convinced about Ole Miss yet. I think just about everything else is almost a 50-50. LSU still doesn't have a great defense. I like Garrett Nussmeier, but I don't know if he might be able to put 300 yards on our offense, but they still have to put it in the end zone too. So, and they've had a little bit of a problem with it. And just, Mississippi State is not very good, even though they give Texas some fits. And then Mizzou, like you said, just got boat raced in College Station, which, other than Arkansas winning, that was probably my highlight of the day because I didn't get to watch all of the Alabama-Vandy game.
It was incredible.
Yeah. Because I think Clemson started right at the end of it. I was like, I can't watch it. So I had to start watching the Clemson game. But yeah, so to go back on this offense, though, just real quick, I had a point, back in the day, like 10, 15 years ago, up until 10 and 15 years ago, the saying was the best offense is a good defense, right? And with the explosive offense we have now with, like air raid stuff, pretty much Bobby Petrino's style of offense. The best defense is a good offense now. And you can either do that by scoring as much points as you want or slowing the game down and taking huge drives. And that's exactly what Arkansas did in the first drive. 16 plays, 9 minutes, 12 seconds. That's incredible, right? Now you got to put it in the end zone right there, right?
We got to field goal out of it. Yeah, that hurt.
Yeah. If you do that and then you hold Tennessee to 3 plays like you did the next series, and then you go down and you punch it in again, you're already down a quarter and Tennessee is in shambles, right? Or you're already up 14, down a quarter, and Tennessee's in shambles. So I think that's going to be a good game plan, especially for our defense and how good it is, and teams that have good offenses like Texas or Ole Miss. So I don't know. There's just so much that I feel like Arkansas can do if they played cleanly, that they could be, dare I say it, a college football playoff team. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? First year.
Insane. If we win out, it's possible. But you had to win out. Dude, that's upsetting a lot of teams.
I think if they win out, except for Texas, because I'm not going to pick them against Texas. If they lose to Texas but give them a really, really good fight, they could probably go in with 3 losses. Which is, if maybe. there's what do you call it? Compared to like the strength of schedule and everything, it'll be pretty close. But it also depends on what the field looks like too. So
does Tennessee lose any more games? Those types of things. Yeah.
It's gonna be Tennessee a lot of lose, marks. And then everybody has a loss except for Texas. That's insane. Vandy beat. I still can't get over that. Vandy beat Alabama. And then they walked the field goal like 3 miles to throw it in the river. Did you see that?
Yep, down
Broadway. That is history, bro. That's incredible.
Our win was big. Don't get me wrong, and we can talk about it a little bit more in a minute. But I don't particularly love the fact that we rushed the field. I know rushing the field's fun, and everybody wants to do it. And this was a huge win. I think that's one of the highest ranked wins we've had since 2007 or something like that, when we beat LSU. Anyway, wild things. Don't get me wrong, historic, and I love it. But we've been there. We have done that before. We have beat really good teams when we shouldn't have. We've rushed the field for some teams we probably shouldn't have in the past either. Thinking about you, Texas, back 3 or 4 years ago. But anyways,
I feel like
I know it's exciting.
That mattered. I feel like in context, the Texas was okay because the years of Chad Morris, and then the COVID year, and then everybody talking about it, and then also the storyline of Texas coming into the SEC and us being the first SEC team to play, and then going
not to mention the old Southwest Conference rivalry too.
Big rivalry, yeah, that was a huge game, and it was a sold.
No, but I get what you're saying. They were the number 15 team in the country.
Yeah.
This
one's bigger. Let's be real. This is a bigger win, frankly. But I still on the fence on the rush in the field. But Vanderbilt earned every bit of that field rush and then some. I mean, that's the first time I think they've ever beat Bama. And if I remember correctly, there was a crazy stat that I think they had scored 13 points total in the Nick Saban era against Alabama. That they'd been shut out that many times against Bama and could never score points against them. When Nick Saban was there, they were just dominant against them. And then first year Saban's gone, Vanderbilt finds a way to squeak it out. It's an insane game. But anyway, kudos to Vanderbilt. That was incredible.
It's been 40 years since they beat Bama. So 1984 is the last time. But this is the first time they've ever beaten a top 5 team in history.
Yep. They're like 0-60 until now.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you got to think of like, how is Kalen DeBoer feeling,
On a high one week and on the lowest low the next week, man. Yeah. That's crazy.
Now, I'm telling you, SEC. I feel like the culture is just so much different there, too. Did you see how they handled that loss? It was bad. I don't know who number 13 is on the defense for Bama, but that dude needs to go to anger management. He kicked That or he needs to go back to kindergarten because that was a tantrum. That was ridiculous. They beat your ass. I don't know if I can cuss, sorry, but they beat them. Just take it, man. Just take it. Guess what? You are part of
You
history.
got outplayed.
Yeah. You let Vandy score 40 points on you. Like,
it wasn't like it was refs or something like that where he could have been mad at the officials. It was 100%. They ran the ball all over you all day. Vanderbilt was running some crazy wishbone. They looked like Georgia Tech from 10 years ago. And Bama didn't know how to stop it. They hadn't played an offense like that. And they physically did not know how to stop it. And Vanderbilt ran all over them. And then when they couldn't run the ball, Pavi was dropping dimes left and right. I mean, it was wild. But anyway, that's their game.
He's like Johnny Football Light, man. He even moves like it. He's a little bit slower, but it's eerily
phenomenal game. This is definitely the week of the upsets. Upset Saturday. This a very historic day in college football.
I think they said the list was. They said number 1, number 4, number 9, 10, and 11 all lost yesterday. Miami barely escaped Cal.
Miami barely won at number 8, I believe.
And that was bullcrap too. They had a lineman almost in the end zone on that last touchdown. That was dumb. Oh, I was hoping for him.
Cal played good.
So
go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead before we move on real quick.
I was just saying Cal played good, and maybe that win they had against Auburn wasn't as much of a, hey, Auburn's horrible. Granted, Auburn's horrible, but I think Cal is actually better than a lot of people gave him credit for. They've been competitive in like dang near every game they've played, beat a couple teams they shouldn't have, and really took number 8 Miami to the wire. We're waxing them in the first half.
Well, that's back-to-back games. Miami struggled as well.
True. Very true. It's crazy.
But, as I was going to circle back around here, we were talking kind of about LSU, so our next opponent coming up, looking at their schedule, they haven't really played anybody up until this upcoming week. They have Ole Miss at home, but up until then, they played number 23 USC at the time, lost that game.
And USC's not good. That's the thing is USC's kind of fallen apart since then.
And you've got they beat Nicholls State. They beat South Carolina team, which they were lucky to win that game. They beat a UCLA team that's been bad this year that struggled against a Hawaii team. They beat a South Alabama team. So you're looking at these next 2 weeks are their probably toughest games that they've played so far against Ole Miss and then us. And it doesn't get any easier. Like LSU could go on a really bad skid here these next 5 to 6 games because you look at they play Ole Miss, us on the road, A&M on the road, Alabama, then Florida. Then they got to play that Vanderbilt team. So, and
then Oklahoma at the end of it all.
Right, exactly.
Also not great, but better than who they've played so far, in my opinion. Because truthfully, I know USC is okay, but I think that loss to USC is looking worse and worse and worse as the year goes on.
Yeah, it's like our. It's better than our loss against Oklahoma State, but it's the same concept.
Fair.
But man, you are correct. I didn't even look at this. That is a gauntlet. 7 teams. Even Florida, if they got to play Florida at Florida. And if Billy Napier's still there, I imagine he's playing for his job. Right? So that's
tough. It's always tough in the swamp, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a tough stretch.
Yeah.
Hope we can make it really hard on them.
Yeah, get a win there. Because it seems like no matter what, and LSU is just one of those teams, one of those games that no matter how good, how bad either team is, it's always a weird, close game no matter what. As bad as Arkansas was last year, we played them to 3 points in Death Valley. So, if you come in with good game plan this week, you got 2 weeks to prepare. And, it's like Pittman said in his press conference this past week, Arkansas's never lost coming off a bye week since he's been here.
Crazy. I didn't know that.
So,
didn't they come off a bye week against Georgia? I don't know. That was 2021. So
was that Pittman's?
Was that the COVID year when we had to play them extra?
I think that was the first
year
game
after.
of the season.
Hang on, I'll go back. I'll look real quick.
But and while you're looking that up, one thing I wanted to point out that we've had comments come in over the past few weeks talking about this defensive line and not getting after the quarterback. 4 sacks this week, 4 sacks and 4 tackles for losses from this Arkansas defense. Looking at the sack total, you had 2 linebackers, Larry Worth, Steven Dix, getting a half a sack. Cameron Ball, big Cam Ball up there in the middle, breaking through, getting the sack. Eric Gregory breaking out and having a good game, 1.5 sacks. Landon Jackson credited for half a sack. And so, I mean, T-Will is, week after week getting better, drawing up better schemes, and he plays. And Seth, you mentioned it before we jumped on. Landon Jackson was double the entire game and still was able to, push guys back in the pocket, help collapse that pocket, and, force some breakdowns for Tennessee. So I think that was big, scheming wise. T-Will is trying to get his key players, in the game plan and find ways to get them to affect the game. And I think you see that, as the weeks go on. You saw Nico have some pressures last week. Landon definitely had a big game last week. So I think as it's like we talk about, as we keep going and these other players start making plays, they're going to have to stop doubling Landon every play, which is going to open him up to, do what we know he can do and what we saw him do last year.
He had a great game, even if it wasn't big on stats. But the biggest thing, they hit home a couple times, got some good sacks, and T-Will has been so good at drawing up weird pressures in strange packages and disguising it, and sometimes blitzing, sometimes backing out and covering. You had Landon Jackson in coverage a couple times, even just because they were using such funky schemes, but it worked well. And Nico was confused a lot of the time, and then they were getting home, even if it wasn't counting as a sack or even a QB hurry, just moving the pocket and making him uncomfortable, having him flush out, have inaccurate throws. There were several times that they had some open receivers streaking deep downfield, and he wasn't able to stay set long enough to really deliver a good, accurate deep ball. And that was fantastic on our end. And there towards the end of the game, when we were running a little bit more prevent look, it was not working because the thing that worked all game long was making him uncomfortable in the pocket. And we got away from that, getting a little bit, conservative, playing prevent defense. And I swear, I understand why you do it, but it seems like it's always iffy at best. But anyhow, all in all, they had a really great game of affecting Nico's confidence. That sack early on that I think Cam Ball had, I think it got in his head. And he was struggling out there, feeling confident whenever we were even getting close or pushing guys around. And I think that had a tremendous effect on the game.
The one big funky thing that I know you're talking about scheming that I noticed Travis Williams did, I think it was in the second half, is we were running that 3-man front. Well, you had one guy switch where he's hand on the ground, jumps back, and you have one of the guys that's one of the linebackers drop down, and it caused them to have a false start there. So, things like that, like you said, doing weird things like that can throw off opposing offensive lines and quarterbacks. That's just something that, shows how brilliant that Travis Williams has been as an up-and-coming defensive coordinator.
He's got a lot of trust in the guys, too, to be able to go out there and execute these plays and be out of position at the start of the play, but be able to drop back into their position, whether it's zone, whether it's man, whatever the case may be. You look back at some of the years past when you had dadgummit, Missouri's old coach,
Barry
defensive coordinator. Yeah, Barry Odom. I didn't feel like we disguised enough blitzing or disguised coverages even. It was like everybody was in their position at the snap. That it was very easy to read our defense, even though we did have some good success running like the three-man front and dropping, 8 guys back into coverage pretty much every single play. We were able to, force some turnovers just due to quarterbacks not being used to that. But once teams figured it out there towards the end of the year, it was not very successful because people had all the time in the day back there in the pocket to kind of slice and dice. And once they had that understanding, it didn't work as well. And so being able to disguise your coverages, switch your coverages, switch your blitz packages and disguise your blitz packages, all of those things mixed together and do it all well without having a lot of discipline issues where there's missed assignments and busted coverages due to it, man, that makes calling defense probably really fun because it becomes a chess match at that point. And T. Will's been great so far.
So I was wrong. I was thinking 2021 when they went to Athens as the number 8 team and got destroyed 37-0. No, they didn't have a bye week until 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Week 9 that year. That's crazy. Yeah, it was. But no, what you guys were talking about, specifically on the defensive line, that pressure from Gregory and Cam Ball, that's where it needs to be, right?
Yep.
I don't know if you caught College Game Day. I think he was talking about Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was Michigan because he was talking about having trouble against them in the playoffs last year. That those guys in the middle, if you have good defensive tackles in the middle that can have a good pass rush, you can put those ends even wider. Because they're gonna, if you have guys who are athletic, you can play multiple gaps right there. You're gonna take up offensive linemen. You're gonna be able to let those ends be able to really, really push on those tackles. Go 10 yards deep. So that's exactly where that pressure needs to come from. And like you said, I don't know, because I think it was after they started running a little bit, I was like, why are we still in this 3-2 defense? And then they showed a couple of the plays, like that one long run by Sampson. All it was is one safety was a little bit out of position, right? That's all it took. And I'm like, well, that's too far inside, and he probably just didn't realize he had help to his inside. So that's just a mistake. But other than that, it just worked really well, which is surprising. And it probably is a little bit because they hadn't seen it before. But yeah, no, I think it's where they're progressing is where they need to be progressing, right? Man, I'm just so surprised about how good this defense is. Like it's literally, it's just shocking how good it is. And I think there's a narrative going around the country that, like, oh, look at what Tennessee did to lose this game. And I feel like if you actually watched it, and if you've watched other Arkansas football games other than UAB, you would be thinking the same thing. This defense is very, very, very good, right? I'm not going to go ahead and say the word elite.
Turned the ball over 5 times. It wasn't like when we were playing Auburn, and Auburn had 5 turnovers against us. And so all the Auburn faithful are going to be like, well, if we just played a little cleaner and didn't have the turnovers, we probably could have won against Arkansas. Okay, fine, fair enough, because I feel the exact same way against Oklahoma State. This game, neither team had a turnover. It was very clean football, very, very competitive football on both sides, where I think Tennessee's defense caused some issues for us on getting into the end zone once we got into the red zone. You got to give them their credit there. They have a phenomenal defensive line. We were able to run the ball better than I think they expected us to. But kudos to our offensive line for matching up well and winning some battles in the trenches. But this was not a fluke win where Tennessee shot themselves in the foot 98 times, and they had a bunch of penalties. I will say that they had 10 penalties. So maybe some issues there. But to me, only one of those really felt like it was a game changer, if you want to even call it that, with the roughing the passer on Talon and stuff.
Well, they also had
roughing the kicker. Sorry.
Yeah.
Where we got the free first down out of it. Sorry, I said that wrong. Outside of that, they shot themselves in the foot on some false starts, but I think you got to give some credit to the fact that it was in Fayetteville at night, and it was a sellout crowd, and we actually played pretty well, and the crowd was really, really into it after about the first 2 drives, and it was like, you know what, maybe we can compete with these guys, and I think the crowd just kept amping into that, and so there was several false start penalties that Tennessee faced, and I think there was a delay of game as well due to that. So those things, I guess you can say Tennessee fans could say we didn't play our best in those areas, but it was certainly not, oh, we just turned the ball over and coughed it up at our own 1-yard line and blah, 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 blah. That was not the case. This was actually a very competitive, well-fought game where both teams played clean, and it really came down to the fact that Arkansas is more talented than Tennessee fans thought. it was just, could we play clean enough to stay in the game? And we finally did, and here we are. So props to both teams. I thought both teams executed well enough to win this game. We were just fortunate enough that our defense was rested through the first half enough to play full 4 quarters, and that's been hurting us all year. So it's just a testament to how much talent we have in our starting units. We just got to get a little bit deeper, and I think you'll start seeing this type of game, even when we don't have the time of possession win that we did.
So I don't even buy that argument, right? So the biggest problem they had was those pre-snap penalties, right? The false starts, delay a game, whatever. I'm pretty sure they had 5, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure they converted the third down on 4 of those, at least 4 of them. So I mean, like, you're saying, well, we had all these penalties. Well, you made up for it. No,
they weren't game breakers at all. Yeah.
And you went down, you had 10 yards, and Arkansas beat you. Like, you had to go 10 yards, and Arkansas didn't let you. That's what happened. Like the first series, 3 and out. There was nothing there, Just I don't buy that at all. But I mean, I know they're probably gonna say that, and they're gonna say, oh, well, the rest helped Arkansas, which whatever, There's a holding penalty on every single play. I guarantee you, if I go and look at all, 120 snaps or whatever, I'm gonna find a holding penalty every single time. It's just the egregious ones that need to be called, right?
They missed several on Landon, in my opinion. There could have been more penalties against Tennessee, frankly. But
and there could have been more against Arkansas, but it's
100%.
It's you do what you do with what you got, and they didn't. So
at the end of the day, it was a good win for Arkansas. They said statistically 6th largest crowd in history for this game. I think it was like a little over 75,000 that they had chucked up for attendance there. But, as we kind of get ready to wrap up here, what a great game by Arkansas, but definitely a bounce back game. It was much needed after, a tough game in against A&M down in Jerry World last weekend. But, I think this comes to show you the narrative for this season looks like it could be changing a little bit. Arkansas is sitting at 4-2 now, entering a bye week to get healthy. 2 more wins don't look impossible now as you look through the rest of the season, as you got, like we talked about. We'll see what LSU holds with them not really having to play anybody. You've got a very beatable Mississippi State team. You should be able to beat Louisiana Tech, and then you've got Missouri to end the season, but then those 2 other games that are probably your toughest 2 left, Ole Miss and Texas. And you get those guys right here in Fayetteville, just like we did this week, which, who knows? If we can have attendances like this and games like this, don't rule out another, quote unquote upset. Again, I mean, especially if we have another night game, you're looking at a potential night game for LSU as well. So that could be big to get them here at night. And, coming off a big win like this, it could be a change of season. You get that win, you're sitting at 5-2 with,
a couple more winnable games left as well at that point. If you can squeak out the win against LSU, whether it's ugly or great or whatever, if you can find a way to win in that one, and then you still got Mississippi State and Louisiana Tech left on the schedule, both of those, either one of them would get you ball eligible. I'm hoping you win both of them to get to 7 wins potentially. At that point, after having lost the Oklahoma State game and the A&M game, I think everybody would think it'd been a miracle. So insane.
Hang on a second. Before we get off, let me look at something. Where is it?
Yeah. While he's doing that, we'll be back next week on a regular show. We won't have any game preview. We'll be kind of talking about things going on with the week. We'll give you some updates on, what Pittman says in the press conferences, things like that. We had some big visitors this week, so we'll talk about that. And you saw, linebacker commit, if you were on social media, Tavian Wallace was there last night for that big win. You had Malik Thomas, the 5-star basketball recruit that was visiting this weekend. What a way to kind of get a big win with him on campus and seeing what it's like with Razorback Nation and, how good those big wins can be and how they celebrate there.
100%, man. It's exciting. I know Coach Cal was there. So that was just a phenomenal atmosphere. Night games in Fayetteville are pretty special, especially with some of the tailgating that goes on in advance.
Plus, you had
It was
Kirk
a little-
Herbstreit and his dog there too.
Ben was there. Yeah, that was really, really cool to see that. So, and then the Navy had the parachutes come in. I mean, just a big weekend overall. And then what a way to top it off with a close, hard-fought victory over a very, very good Tennessee team that nobody saw us beating. So it's just a great feeling. And the worst part about it is just the what-if game in the back of my head of like, man, if you'd have played this good and had this few turnovers, that if we'd have played this clean against everybody we played all year, you're 6-0. You are good enough to have been 6-0 at this point. And that's a good feeling, but also a sad feeling in a way that we're just 4-2. But
yeah,
it's better than I thought this year could have gone. So I'm excited to see what the second half of the season holds after we get done with the bye week. If we can continue this momentum and keep playing clean ball, I think the sky's the limit. You could really compete with even some of the tougher games that left on the schedule, the Ole Miss and Texas. If you play clean caliber ball and the defense holds up as well as they have been, and you get a couple guys back healthy, you get Jalen Braxton back fully healthy, guys like that we hadn't even talked about, you could gear up and kind of re-ready, if you will, for the last half of this year and really do some damage and have a very competitive season, one that I think a lot of people were hoping for but weren't necessarily expecting. So I'm excited.
So when Arkansas plays Ole Miss, Arkansas could potentially be 6-2, right? Ole Miss 7-1. I don't know if it's a night game or not, but I think it's at least later. Do you think College Game Day might come?
We got to stop it with the College Game Day talks, man.
Dude,
we were talking about that 2 weeks ago with A&M.
I'm gonna keep saying it until it happens. You got to manifest it, man. I desperately want to see a College Game Day in Fayetteville before I die. And before yesterday, I don't think that would have happened. So that's all I got. Have you seen that clip of the wife? She goes and turns off the Xbox and he gets mad and he's walking away and she's like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "That's all I got." That's me right now. Okay. All I have is hope. So let me have it. All right.
I'm with dude. If it happens, I'm here for it.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm looking at some of the games right now. It might be kind of the only thing. Well, there's Texas and Vandy, if Vandy's good by then, who knows? But I think that would be, I'm going to be, I don't know. I'm hyped.
You just got to win games, man. That's the thing. Win games and the media will follow. Lose games
here's
and
the thing.
The media will not.
Here's the thing. I'm not a player, so I can afford to look ahead, right? They can't. They got to be thinking about this getting healthy and then LSU. And then I can think of, when they play Ole Miss. But
I was about to say, if you look forward now, now that the SEC released the time windows for upcoming games. So the LSU game is set for a night window anywhere between 5 to 7 kickoff. Arkansas, Mississippi State set for any time between 11 and noon kickoff. Ole Miss is set for an 11 to noon kickoff as well. They could flex that and change that.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong week. That was the week before. No, OSU plays Penn State that week, and it's at Penn State. If they have a whiteout, ain't no way. No. So, look, you killed my dreams, Seth.
Sorry. That'd be all right. We appreciate you coming on the show tonight, Austin, and helping us with the breakdown. But all in all, man, couldn't have been a much better weekend from Arkansas football. They played great. The fans turned out great. It worked out. There were some critical recruits there at the same time. So a lot of good things, and hopefully we can carry this momentum.
Yeah, it's like I like to say, I'm not going to say it too much because I don't know how it'll affect it. But if you know, it's like that one lyric that Arkansas fans like to sing at home and Tennessee too. So you get Arkansas gets the big win over number 4 Tennessee. we're going to get out of here. We'll see you back next week for our regularly scheduled episode. It'll be a bye week next week, so no recap next Sunday, but we might have something else in store for you. See what Seth and I can work up. But once again, great win for Arkansas. Great momentum builder. Let's use this bye week to get healthy and come out ready for a nighttime showdown against the LSU Tigers headed to Fayetteville. So until then, we'll see you next time.